Hey guys, how's it going? It's Amy here bringing you today's Life Words video, and it's our final video in this series looking at the lives of Elijah and Elisha and how God was with these men. Now our passages today are taken from the book of 2 Kings chapters 4 and 5, and I want to show you some really cool stories from the ministry of Elisha. Now you'll remember yesterday Kwaku showed us that Elisha took over from Elijah. Elisha had asked for a double portion of God's Spirit to be with him. And we'll see in some of our stories today that Elisha picks up right where Elijah left off. God does some really cool stuff through words that he gives Elisha for people. Our first story from 2 Kings chapter 4 is a great one. See, a widow comes to Elisha. She's in desperate need. She has nothing left but a little bit of oil. How is she going to feed her family? Elisha says to her, go around the neighbours and ask for jars. Borrow them. When you have as many as you think you need, come back into your home and begin to pour the oil out. See, I love this story because it takes real faith of the widow. She only has a little bit of oil. Why does she need more jars? But she goes, she rounds up her sons and they go out and they get barrels and jars. They bring them back. They close the door behind them. And the woman bravely begins to pour the oil out. She fills one jar. She fills the next jar. And another jar. She then gets to the end of the jars and kind of says, is there any left? Her son says no, and what happens? The oil stops pouring. The oil came as far as she had faith that it would come. All the jars are full. I love this miracle because it teaches us so much about expectations. Do we expect God to do the miraculous? See, if the woman hadn't really trusted what Elisha had said, she wouldn't have got many jars. But instead, for as many jars as they collected in faith, the oil came. Elisha comes and says, go now and sell this oil that you have to feed your family. The woman and her sons had to join in expectation that God would do the miraculous among them. And it happened. What an amazing story. What does that teach us about our expectations, about what we're going to see God do? Then we see in chapter 5, Elisha has an encounter with someone called Naaman. Naaman is the commander of an army. Elisha sees him. He's suffering from leprosy, which means he's been rejected from community. He's got a skin disease that means that he cannot come close to others. What does Elisha tell him to do? Elisha tells him to go and bathe himself in the river 7 times. Naaman has a strange reaction. He's furious. He didn't want to do that. He just wanted a word from Elisha that would make him clean. But instead he doesn't want to have to go and degrade himself by dipping himself in the mirror, so he throws a wobbly. He refuses to do it. He would rather stay sick than follow this instruction. But someone encourages Naaman to do what Elisha says, and he goes and he bathes himself in the river 7 times and is made clean. I wonder how you respond when God gives you an instruction that you don't want to follow. Maybe you've got a better idea that you think is better than what God's saying. Maybe you want to do things your own way. Can I encourage you from this story that when we follow God's way and God's instructions, it works out for our good? See, Naaman in his stubbornness and pride didn't want to follow Elisha's instructions, but when he did, he was healed, he was made whole, he was able to go back to living. How might we not be proud? How might we have humble hearts to hear what God is saying because it's the best for us, and then to respond appropriately? Elisha encouraged people to act in faith. Whether it was to collect jars for oil, whether it was to go and bathe in a river and trust that God would heal Naaman, where today do we need to act in faith? Perhaps where do we need to be people that encourage others to follow God's ways like Elisha does? Where do we need to be brave and speak out words that bring hope and healing? But where do we also need to act in faith? You know, sometimes we want to see all the answers before we're brave enough to take a step. But these stories trust us that we need to step out in faith. And when we do, God meets us there. He provides for the widow's needs. He heals Naaman. What might God want to do in our lives? Guys, there's even more stories, so check them out in the start of the book of 2 Kings. Drop us your comments, let us know your questions, and we look forward to unpacking these stories in Life Words Impact. Have a brilliant day, guys. See you soon. Bye now.